There's something about vintage chronographs that I've always found attractive. I love the look of a vintage chronograph. I love the size of vintage chronographs. And there are a few brands that make modern versions of vintage chronographs really well, and Nivada Grenchen are one of them. Today we're taking a look at their Chronoking. This is the Salmon dial. They've come out with a number of different dials for this watch over the past few years. I think this is one of the best dials that they have ever done, and this could be one of the most attractive chronographs under $500. It's sized right, the strap is beautiful, the case is really nicely made. Everything here screams quality. It looks a lot more expensive than it actually is, but it actually is well under $500. So let's flip the camera, let's take a look hands-on at the Chronoking Salmon from Nivada Grenchen. I honestly do believe this is one of the best looking chronographs under $500. And this is actually pretty well under $500, and considering what you're getting, the package and the look of this watch, the history behind the brand, I think this is a very good value proposition when considering how much chronographs are in general. And there are brands out there that offer meca-quartz chronographs that are pretty expensive. And this is somewhere on the more expensive side when you're considering it's a meca-quartz chronograph, because there are cheap ones out there. But again, considering what you're getting here, I think this is an excellent value proposition. So starting with the crystal, you're getting a domed sapphire crystal that is boxed, raised off of that bezel. So sapphire crystal, really nice, looks good, very vintage inspired, obviously goes very well with this watch. Then you have a bi-directional friction fitted bezel. So this is obviously something that's a little bit different for a lot of meca-quartz chronographs. So you're not getting a bezel on many of those meca-quartz chronographs out there. This is something that's a little bit different. Again, vintage inspired, but the fact that you're getting a rotating bezel with a 60-minute counter on it, I think is good. I think it's a very good thing because it obviously adds a little bit of complication to the case, the creation of the case. So it's a little bit nicer. Then you get to the dial. The dial here is a metallic salmon. This is the Salmon chronograph, so obviously not that creative with the name. It is the Chronoking Salmon chronograph. That's what they're calling it. You have a black minute track. There is, I believe it's a tachometer on there. I'll do a close-up to make sure of that, but I believe it is a tachometer. It's pretty small, so it's really kind of hard to see. Then you have applied indices. Those indices are made of solid blocks of Lume. They're batons. They're little rectangles sitting on the dial. Those are filled with Lume. They look fantastic on that salmon background. They're white. They're not like a creamy white. They're not old radium. They're a bright white, so it looks good. Some people, complain about that. I think this looks great. Then you have those subdials. The subdials are textured. They look like a vinyl record a little bit. And then you have the hands for those subdials. Those are in white. The hands for the time-telling portion and that chronograph seconds, that running seconds right there, you get a half black, half white chronograph seconds. It's a very long wedge. I'm not sure if that's loomed. I really hope it is. And then you have fence post hands. Those are all in black except for the Lume, which is in white. So you're getting a very beautifully put together dial, very legible, because those black hands sitting on that salmon background, it actually is very, very legible. And then you have the brand logo right at the 12 o'clock. That's really it. Nothing more to the dial. It really is a very simple, straightforward dial that is very vintage inspired. You have a very vintage inspired case as well. There is brushing on the tops of these lugs, but it's just a line of brushing, which looks really good. And then the case has a very thick line of polish that goes on the top of the lugs, on the other side of the lugs, basically. And then on the bottom of the case, it is all polished. You have a beautiful case back. This is the case back that they use on most of their watches. It's really nicely embossed. It has a very nice feel to it. It's bead blasted, brushed, and polished, so a lot going on the case back as well. Very, very nice case on this watch. You have a very big crown, which is of course signed with their logo, and you can see that it's very large. It's around 6.8 millimeters, considering this is a 38.9 millimeter watch, which is almost 39 millimeters. That That is very good. It's a very large crown, very easy to operate. And this is a meca-quartz movement. Yes, this gets a Seiko meca-quartz, so it's a VK63 meca-quartz, which is obviously a very reliable watch. A quartz movement with a mechanical chronograph, and that's where you get that semi-smooth sweep to that chronograph seconds. And then you have a ticking seconds at the 6 o'clock. So that's what a meca-quartz chronograph does. And obviously it works really well. They're very reliable, and you do get a sweep seconds for the chronograph. So it almost looks like a mechanical watch, even though it is only partially mechanical. It's a hybrid movement. 46 millimeter lug to lug, 39.9 millimeter case, and then a 12.5 millimeter thickness. That's including the boxed domed sapphire crystal and 100 meters of water resistance on this chronograph. That again is very impressive. I'm overall very impressed with this watch. 100 meters of water resistance for a chronograph, usually a dress chronograph like this, is pretty substantial, I would say. I would expect 50 meters of water resistance. If you check out most chronographs out there, 50 meters is kind of the standard. 100 meters is a little bit better. Just a little bit better. That means you can go swimming with this. You can do pretty much anything you want with it. This is a leather strap that's on here. It's a perforated rally style leather strap, but you can get this with a rubber strap or a bracelet. If you actually want to go swimming with this, you can. This is a great everyday watch, vacation watch, something like that. It also looks a lot more expensive than the $479 this costs. This is a $479 watch, and I think it looks like a watch that could cost thousands of dollars. If you saw this on the wrist of someone and you did not know what this cost, you might think it was a vintage watch that was a lot more expensive than it actually is. And that's something that I think is very good. I always say this when I do watch reviews. If a watch looks more expensive than it actually is, that is definitely not a bad thing. Speaking of watches that look a lot more expensive than they actually are, let me show you the watch that I have on my wrist. On my wrist today, I have Excelsior Park. This is the EP844 or 884. I can't remember, but this is a vintage style dress watch that is hand wound with a beautiful blue dial, curved hands, curved dial, just an all-around good-looking watch that looks a lot more expensive than it actually is, and you are getting a hand-wound Swiss movement inside this watch. I think this watch looks a lot more expensive than it actually is as well. And there it is on my 7.5-inch wrist. Like I said, this is a 39 millimeter watch with a 12.5 millimeter thickness, but it sits really nice on the wrist. It's not a thick chronograph. Again, the benefit of a meca-quartz chronograph or a quartz chronograph, you're getting something that is thinner than a mechanical chronograph. A mechanical chronograph would be a lot thicker than this watch. Even watches that Nivada Grenchen offer that are mechanical chronographs are obviously thicker than this. And that's kind of the advantage to the meca-quartz Chronoking, in my opinion. That's definitely one of the advantages. You can see that the lug to lug is around 46 millimeters. I think I measured 46.6 millimeters or 46.5 millimeters, somewhere around there. And obviously it looks really good on my 7.5-inch wrist. And very quickly, let's do a lume shot, because I believe that the lume on this watch will be good because you do have those applied indices. Let's check it out. So lume, where it's applied, is very liberally applied. Those blocks of lume are very bright. The hands are also very bright. Unfortunately, the second hands, both the second hands, the chronograph hand and the running seconds, are not lumed. I wish they were. I always say that with every review that I do. I like to see a running seconds. However, again, this is really a dress sports sort of chronograph. So the fact that they didn't lume the second hand, I guess, is forgivable. But, you know, again, it's a personal preference. I like to see a little bit of lume on the second hand so I can see that my watch is working in the dark. Again, that is a personal preference. Tell me what you guys think about this watch down in the description below. What do you think of this watch in general? I think this is probably one of the best chronographs, one of the best looking chronographs, and one of the best made meca-quartz chronographs for around $500 or under $500 that you can get. Tell me what you think down in the comments below. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? They made another version of this. They made a few versions of this. They recently came out with a loomed version, which was like a ghostly loomed. They've just come out with some really cool versions of this watch. And this is just yet another good looking version. It's just a good looking watch. So obviously the salmon dial doesn't disappoint. I will put a link to this watch down in the description below if you're interested in it. definitely check it out. Please also don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon. Super helpful for the channel, and I very much appreciate it. And that's really it, guys. Thank you for checking out this video. I will catch you guys in the next video.